Hey guys, welcome back to my channel today. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my thoughts on a new Natasha Denona product. These are all of the Chroma Crystal liquid eyeshadows. She did release this brand new product to her collection, I believe it was yesterday, and I sent these to the US border so I could get them really quickly to start testing them for you guys. I did pick up every single shade of these with my own money, and I am so excited to test these, you guys, because these look like some beautiful colors. Before we get into it, my name is Jenna. I am obsessed with high-end and luxury makeup, so of course Natasha Denona is definitely in that category. So if you guys are into high-end and luxury makeup like me, I'm sure you'd get along great and be great friends. So definitely consider subscribing before we get started if you want more high-end and luxury makeup content. And without further ado, let's get on to my thoughts on these beautiful liquid shadows. Now, first things first, let's take a look at the outer packaging. The outer packaging is gorgeous. I think that it has the same kind of classic Natasha Denona labeling. It's really nice and distinct for these liquid eyeshadows, and they do have a little bit of like a textured glitter on them. So the outer box, when you pick them up in store, are going to be a little bit textured, which is kind of an extra touch. Then when you open up the product itself, you will see the shade of the actual liquid shadow in the packaging. It's like a see-through bit in the packaging here. And then you have this gorgeous rose gold reflective packaging as well. Each shade is labeled with their shade name on the bottom. And by the way, I'm missing some nails, so oopsies. Anyways, so we do have this shade name here. It's tiny. I will show you a zoomed in photo of this as well, but it does help keep every shade distinct, especially if you're trying to get a whole bunch of them, because some of them are close in shade, but not quite. They do have some variances, but it's nice to know which shade you have. Each one of these liquid shadows does come with a doe foot applicator, and I do like that because it does make it nice and easy to use. I don't think that the doe foot is too big or anything. I think it's the perfect size. If it was too big, it would be really hard to kind of apply it to the eye in a efficient way, but this is a perfect size, so I do like that. Now, first impression for the actual kind of fluid itself, to me, it's a little bit on the thicker side and a little bit chunky when you pull it out of the tube, but I don't think that that makes, you know, the product itself any less smooth, because as you can see, this is one swipe of one of them. This one is Sienna. It is super smooth as you apply it to the skin. As you can see, it's really nice and doesn't tug at the skin or anything, so I do like that. But when you first pull it out of the tube, it can look like it's a little bit thicker and on the chunkier side. Each one of these liquid eyeshadows does retail for $25 American or 32 Canadian dollars. They're available now at Sephora, US, Canada, other countries as well, Beautylish, and also Natasha Denona's website. I do think this price point is actually a little bit better, more affordable for her line. I know it's obviously not affordable just as a term, but compared to some of the other products that are in her line, I do think that this is priced pretty well considering, I mean, it is 8 mils of product, so it's not a lot, but I do think that the price tag is not as intimidating as some of her other products in her line. Now, for my look today, I actually wanted to try a whole bunch of different application techniques, and actually for the testing portion of this video, I wanted to prime one lid and actually leave a lid completely bare and see how each side wears. So the shade that I did use today is called Moonstone, and I actually do have a dinner party to go to, so I didn't want to be super smoky, but I will definitely test this one out still and let you guys know my thoughts just like the rest of the shades. But first of all, I primed my lid with a concealer. I just used my Laura Mercier Fusion Concealer today, and I just applied it to one of my lids, blended it in with my finger, and then let it set. Next, I applied the Moonstone shade all over the lid. I used the applicator to just apply it directly on the lid at first, and as you can see, I'm using my finger here to blend it out into the rest of my lid, and it's super easy to do that, but Natasha Denona did say that they dry pretty quickly, so if you're going to be working with these on the lid, make sure that you're going to be putting 1 or 2 swipes, really start to blend it in right away because they will start to dry and then it'll be harder to move around on the lid. This one blended super beautifully. I was really happy with the shade as well. It's a gorgeous like peachy nude, and it's really reflective, really gorgeous. I think it's just like a beautiful color. Definitely the lightest shade out of all of them, but still super gorgeous. Now, the one thing that's a little bit annoying is it's a little bit more time sensitive than I thought it would be, but what you have to do for this, according to Natasha Denona, is that you do have to apply it to the lid, and while it's setting, it's about 1 to 2 minutes of a set time. Just continue to look down. Make sure that you're not going to cause any creasing. So for me, I have hooded eyes. It's a little bit tougher for me to not have creasing happening. So I actually like awkwardly looked down for the 1 to 2 minutes while it was setting. That is a little bit weird to me. I mean, I think for best performance, that's probably the best method. According to her, she did create the product, but I think it was a little bit awkward for me to kind of sit there for 2 minutes just looking down. Even looking down for me, I almost have to kind of lift my eyebrows because of the hoodedness of my eye so that nothing creases or crinkles as it's drying. Next, I applied it to the bare lid as well, and I blended it in with my finger just like before. So this one I found right away that the color of this was much more of a metallic finish compared to the lid that I primed beforehand. So that to me just kind of makes sense. The primer, obviously being a concealer, just kind of dimmed down the color a little bit. So if you don't apply concealer as your primer, the color itself is going to be much brighter, much more vibrant. So I did notice a slight difference between the lids there, and it's purely because I primed one lid with concealer. Next, I wanted to try out the brush technique. She did say you could apply it with a brush as well. I used a Luxie 231 for this, just something nice and standard, and I picked up a little bit of the product off of the applicator and applied it to my lid. I purposely just used the side of the lid that was primed for this brush application because I wanted to make it a little bit more vibrant like the other side. So if you're going to be blending it with a finger, keep in mind it's going to be a lot more natural looking, a little bit more muted down, whereas if you take a brush, Natasha Denona did say it's much more of a foiled look, and that's exactly how it is. So the brush added a little bit more vibrancy to the eye that was lacking slightly because of the concealer primer. I do think both methods are totally fine. I think that I typically lean more towards a finger application, more so for blending up into the crease so I don't make it look too much like a solid line because I'm not a makeup artist. I don't have crazy professional skill. So I do find that something like this with a liquid shadow, I am tending to use my fingers more so for application, but I am not opposed to using a brush to kind of give that initial vibrancy effect or to touch up on some spots that might be a little bit less vibrant because I blended them out a little bit too much. So I like both methods, and I think I'll be using both methods when it comes to applying the rest of them. Now let's take a look at these shades one by one. So Moonstone here is a beautiful nude. It does have a peachiness to it, and it is the liquid version of her classic eyeshadow called Moonstone. It's in a single pan, I believe, but this is Moonstone here, and it is super, super pretty, you guys. Love the fact that it has that gorgeous peachy sheen, super beautiful, and of course it is the color that I'm wearing today. Next we have Aubade, and this is actually the liquid version of the shade in her Sunset palette, named after the exact same name, Aubade, as well. This is one, you guys, that isn't seeming to pick up a lot of the pigment on the brush. So I'm just actually scraping it. This is kind of what I'm doing here. I'm scraping it across the container. This one is picking up incredibly chunky as I get it out of the container here, and it is like having difficulty applying to the doe foot applicator. After several twists and turns, I'm finally getting something on the brush here, and we do have it applying really nice and smooth once I can get something on the brush. But it was difficult at first to get something on the brush. So that I think is definitely a con with these. They're not super smooth picking up product underneath. It just depends on the shade and probably the manufacturing batch. I do have the Sunset palette as well, and Aubade is actually right here. So I'm gonna swatch it right beside the liquid shadow just so you guys can see how they look side by side. Okay, so we have the liquid version on the left, we have the powder version on the right. Both are very metallic, foiled looking, gorgeous shades, but I do think that the liquid one is a touch, I guess, more maybe goldeny versus the Aubade shade in powder form. This next shade here is Sienna, and this one is also a duochrome shade. It is the liquid version from her classic eyeshadows as well in the single pan, named after the same name, Sienna. And this one is gorgeous because it has a green reflect. It's so pretty, you guys. I'm gonna show you here. See if we can swatch it. Okay, so here we have that one. And this one is like a goldeny bronze. There's a tinge of a brownness to it, and it does have a green reflect. I'm going to show you guys also these swatches zoomed in close up as well, because these are obviously a little bit further away, but this is kind of what it looks like and how it shines kind of from far away. Super, super stunning. This next shade here is called Zone. It is a brand new shade according to Natasha Denona, and it has a pink reflect. It is a cool golden shade as well. So even though on some of the promo pictures, some of these shades looked pretty close, these ones really aren't. I feel like they have some distinctness between them to make them definitely different. So here we have Zone. This one is gorgeous. Look at that. So, so pretty. This last shade is called Nightfall. It is by far the deepest one. It is a deep purple brown, and it has some kind of golden bronze fuchsia shifts to it. This one is so, so pretty. I think it'd be beautiful for like a smoky eye. But again, this one is coming out of the tube a little bit more chunky, as you can see. Do you see that right there? There's a bit of a blob. Yeah, you can maybe see that there. So it's a little bit chunkier than the other ones. And this one is, so pretty though. I love that. It's gorgeous. So despite that slight chunkiness, it does apply smooth and consistent, just like the rest of them. With 1 to 2 swipes, you've got full pigmentation. But like I said, I would say the biggest downfall of this packaging is the fact that sometimes you pull out the doe foot and there's really nothing on the wand, that you kind of have to scrape it kind of in the container itself to pick anything up. And then obviously it can get a little bit chunky as well when you're pulling it out of the container. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but the application and applying at least the one shade so far, the Moonstone one, was effortless. All right, guys, now let's take a look at the swatches of all of these 5 shades. As you can see, these do have some distinct differences between them, and I do think that every single one of them is different enough to purchase, you know, whichever ones that you want. There's not one that's similar to another, in my opinion. And for those promo pictures that I did see on Trendmood and Natasha Denona's website as well, I did find that some of them looked pretty close, but in actuality, they really aren't. So I do like the fact they all have a little bit of like a golden theme, with the exception of Nightfall being a little bit more of a bronzy purple. But other than that, these are all very wearable shades. I think that these shades will stretch across all skin tones as well. It'll be super beautiful, like on everyone, basically. So I love that. And I love the fact that they're very easy to use. Don't necessarily love the fact that the packaging and the applicator kind of process has definite cons to it, but I do love how the Moonstone shade applied and how everything worked with blending with my finger. So far, so good with that. Now I'm going to check back in at the end of the day and let you know how this shadow wore throughout the day, especially on my hooded eyes. We do have some deeper creasing on those types of eyes as well, and I'll see how the primer worked compared to a bare lid for longevity of the product. All right, so it is the end of the day. Right now we are sitting at 11 p.m. and now it's time to take a look at the lids and see what is happening. So these honestly look pretty well near perfect. I'm actually really, really impressed. What I can say is there's like faint creasing along where my eyes kind of crease naturally, but it's like basically nothing. Like it's not like the product is separating or anything. It's just like you can tell there's a little bit of an indent there. It does look a touch more dried as well. So when you first apply it, it's a little bit more smooth looking. Now after about 8 hours, it is a little bit drier looking and, you know, a little bit of like faint indentation, but other than that, they look flawless. This is amazing. Like considering how long it's been, I am super, super impressed with these. One thing I definitely didn't notice either is I didn't notice a significant difference between the primed lid and the non-primed lid. So the bare lid and the primed lid literally work the same. So what I can tell you is that if you prime it, the color is going to look a little bit more muted, especially with the concealer primer. But other than that, for longevity purposes, for creasing or anything like that, you don't need a primer, and that's amazing. Anyways, guys, that is it for this Natasha Denona Chroma Crystal Liquid Eyeshadow Collection video. Let me know down below, what are your thoughts on these? Are you going to be picking them up? These look super beautiful. Of course, we've got some pros and some cons, so let me know down below, are they still something you are interested in picking up? And until my next video, guys, take care. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.
but somewhere there's a light inside of us. It shows